now?
One thing is that remember that when the first time I met you, I was treating your daughter, and you were not in that place. You were in your good place. You were super dynamic. So I've seen you go from super dynamic to I don't even want to look at my phone or text anybody back to this. So I've seen your transition, Miss Butterfly.
Welcome to the Create Happy Now podcast, dedicated to helping you start your journey to discover true happiness. Join me, your host, Susan Blanton, weekly as we explore the transformation stories and words of wisdom from our masters of happiness with tips you can start applying today to create happy now. Hey, this is Susan Blanton with the Create Happy Now podcast, and we are back. I know it's been quite a bit since I uploaded a podcast. It has been, I think, since last July, so almost a year. And I do want to come back on with apology for being away, but I was suffering from a virus, not COVID. But it is a virus that has been around for quite some time and has kind of been not really diagnosed properly. And a lot of people are suffering with it and not know it and not being treated appropriately. And so my first guest is my favorite doctor who has been my doctor for many years, and of course I go to him when I was desperate last year. I did not know what was wrong with me. I thought I was depressed. I didn't know why I was depressed. I'm a happiness coach. I have a podcast called Create Happy Now. Why was I depressed? I did not feel well. And I wasn't sick like the flu. I just wanted to crawl up into a ball and not wake up. And so I called him. I knew this had to be something physical. And so I had full trust in Dr. Sloan, who is my next guest. And before I bring him on, I would like for you to hear a little bit about him, and then we will get on with the show. Dr. Max Sloan has dedicated over 22 years of clinical care in the areas of immunology, oncology, infectious disease, and chronically ill patients that have no results from conventional care. Dr. Sloan is considered a pioneer in the field of functional integrative medicine. He founded the Genesis Center and heads the clinical department with his expert team and faculty of healthcare practitioners. He has excellent results in these areas due to the continuous research and dedication to use the most up-to-date technology, laboratory tests, and treatments from the USA and around the world. Certified by RGCC, an International Cancer Research and Treatment Laboratory, he is able to provide the most innovative tests and treatments in the field of cancer immune therapies, curative Lyme disease treatment, and other chronic infections that plague the human body. The Genesis Center has been completely driven by patient testimonies from around the globe. Dr. Sloan's number one rule is God made the body perfect. He did not make it to fail. With this in mind, it changes rules of engagement when assessing the human body and disease. My job is to analyze the body through complete and thorough laboratory testing and to determine what the human body is trying to tell us through its defense mechanisms of healing our body through God's divine wisdom. There is no disease, only human potential for correction. And that's just so powerful. It's so true. And that's why I have come to you for so many different things. And obviously when I was feeling the way I did back in January of 2021, I was like, I have to see you. Of course, you're a very busy person and it's hard to get into you. It took me a month to get in.
I'm sorry.
But, I wanted to kind of start off by, I have a lot of other podcasts prior to this explaining some of the things that I have been going through, but I wanted to kind of go over initially what I was dealing with at the time. Prior to January of last year, my podcast was going great. Everything was going swimmingly. I didn't have anything to be depressed about, to be upset about. And this is what came down for me. I just all of a sudden just didn't feel myself. I just want to lay on the couch, and I welcomed to never wake up. I just didn't have the energy to do anything. I didn't even have the energy to imagine how to do the things I used to do or how other people do it. So I'm going to read a little excerpt from my journal. It's a online journal. So I'm going to read a little bit from that, and then how I came to see you, and then we can kind of talk about what you did to discover what was wrong. And I had full faith in you. And I think that has a lot to do with it too. You have to have faith, and you have to set the intention that you're going to figure it out and create the best version of yourself. And I was ready to give up. I was ready to just, hang in the towel. I wasn't suicidal, but I didn't care. I didn't care about anybody. I didn't care about myself. I didn't care about anything. I just wanted to close my eyes and forget it all, So here's what I was saying. This is January 17th. So where did I go? I sit here looking at all my friends showing such freedom in their expression. I'm trying to smile yet feel like a fraud. I can't express emotion without feeling it as if from a memory, but mostly I feel pain, but afraid to express it for fear of attracting more pain. My head explodes with white noise, and it's deafening and silence. I crave to just listen to anything to mitigate the tendency to feel I might go crazy. I had tinnitus really bad. That came on with a vengeance right away.
That's part of the process.
I drowned my mind in uplifting TV shows. I was just trying to do anything to lift myself out of it. I feel like I'm losing confidence in being my former self, of diminishing that woman, that she may not come back, that the feeling of overwhelm may be my natural state. And my logic tries to talk me out of it, and distraction helps, but my identity feels it's waning as a mother, manager, and lover. How did I get to this place when I was flying high only months ago? I was at a point I felt like I had all the answers: to be emotionally strong, to enjoy, to love, to give, to support, to be creative and enthusiastic in the next thing, to network, to create, to now just wondering how I can muster up the energy to act normal, to show support, love, wisdom, and guidance when I have no idea if I can keep it up for one more minute. It's all coming from memory, but not coming out authentically. It's not coming from my soul. It's as if I'm a hologram mimicking my former self, and the connection is weak and will fade, and hopefully no one will see until I get a good connection again. I need help, but I don't know what to ask for. I have never felt this way before and wouldn't wish this on anyone. I worry I will not be able to continue making a living and the demands of my current work status, nor find another position of equal or more pay, as most jobs of that caliber expect more. And my mental abilities feel weakened, as if I can't take on much more. I could handle so much not too long ago. It felt amazing and exciting, and it tires me to think about it. It's as if I don't know that person anymore.
Yeah.
And
that is a person that you don't know, because it's a place that you've never been before.
Right. I mean, it's like it's almost like an out of body experience. Like your former person just died and now you're what, like
Yeah.
you're just nothing.
When you describe it emotionally, I can describe it almost like in a medical chemical sense, because that's called depersonalization.
Mm-hmm.
And that you feel like you're not connected anymore. You feel not like you're not grounded. You feel like you're not in the moment. You feel like you don't have that peace to just sit and be into people. I know it. I've been through concussions and I've been through Lyme and stuff like that too. But that's a feeling. And since you're like a little bit more supernatural and you have that, that feeling that you like, it's like an elite athlete. They know how they feel when they're really, really good. And then
Yeah.
bad for them is really bad because
The contrast
your
is,
baseline is really high. So, and when you hit the bottom, I mean, fortunate for you, it wasn't 20 or 30 years worth of it. And that's what I typically see is like long-term illness. And you could only imagine how much they've drowned themselves in their own illness, and their identity is just completely gone.
right. And, the thing is, I was searching, here I am, a happiness coach, life coach. And, I'm like, okay, I got to use these tools to get back to where I was. And I, I didn't have the energy to do that. And, and the thing is, I was like searching, like, why am I feeling this way? I didn't feel sick, like you were like sick, so
Yeah.
I didn't, it
Yeah.
wasn't like an acute illness that I could put my finger on. And I was like, oh, it's not like I was depressed about anything. Everything in my life was going amazing. I had everything to be happy for. And so like, how did I find myself here?
It's a feeling like you feel like you're going to die, but you don't know why. And you can't really explain how bad you feel because it's hard to put your finger on.
And no, and people look at you going, what's wrong with you? You're like, you look fine.
You look great. Yeah.
Right. And I didn't want to scare anybody because I didn't, I was on the side of not caring about myself. I didn't care about anybody, but I had enough logic to go, I'm a mother and I am a partner. I'm all these things and they need me. And I had enough of that to go, all right, this is not normal. This is not real. I have to fix this, and I have to fix it for them because they need me. Right. It'll make life even worse if I can't be there for them.
So what do you think was your trigger from the way I met you and the way you are now? When I met you, you're like this, to that place when I saw you that time and you were just like, I can't move. I can't go on. I can't find my happy. I'm not where I'm supposed to be. This is a new feeling for me. Was there any kind of trigger or any kind of sickness that put you there?
You mean what kind of made me decide to figure it out and get better? And
like what triggered? Was there any trigger that made your body or mind go from happy to I can't find that? Like what would
I don't know.
Stress.
I think I was just I was flying high on so many different things. I had my podcast was at the time very high ranked, and I was so excited about that and just enjoying weekly meeting new people and guests and just riding that ride. My personal life, everything was going swimmingly. We had just had Christmas and it was a great Christmas. I know that I don't think I was able to go home that Christmas because it was toward the end of COVID. I can't remember.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't take much to, like, my patients can feel really, really good in life. And then it takes some stress or if you get sick with some illness, and especially these days after COVID and vaccines and patients are having an immune deficiency syndromes from those. And I'm looking at your lab now because your Epstein-Barr was reactivated. So EBV always lives in us, and it can reactivate it at any time. Your titer was high at 6. It should be less than 3. So that kind of sneaks up on you. All of a sudden, you just feel so run down, you can't move.
Well, I think, in 2016, I turned 50. I'm giving it away. And it felt like, oh, well, now this is what 50 feels like. I mean, I came to you for some things that were going wrong at that time. I wasn't feeling bad mentally, but I had inflammation. I had the frozen shoulder. I had plantar fasciitis. I was having this stuff going on, and I'm like, gosh, I'm falling apart,
It's all inflammatory. It's all part of the same picture. It all goes back to the same few things for each patient, no matter what the symptoms come out as. But
And I
yeah,
thought maybe it was menopause, but they also heard that menopause can be like Epstein-Barr can kind of come on like menopausal symptoms too. But I was like, oh my gosh, maybe it's that, I don't know. But I didn't really have the depression where I had like zapped of complete energy until January of 21. And I probably wasn't, I don't know, I was just kind of on the heels of holiday eating, not that I go nuts or crazy, but, just like anybody else, I am more of a clean eater most of the time. I try, I'm more of a social indulger than just at home.
yeah,
As far as like eating cakes and pies or anything like that, I just don't have them at home. But with Christmas and cookies, and I'm got a weakness for cookies. So if they're in the house, they won't rest until they're gone. But I know my weaknesses, but it's a holiday. So you just kind of like, let your hair down, and you just kind of, just like everybody else, you just want to partake in the festivities and eat what you want to. And not because I was feeding my feelings or anything, but I don't know. I think I just had lots on my plate at the time, and I am that kind of person. Let's see. Can I put another plate up there and start spinning? Oh, I'm gonna try that. I'm gonna add another plate, and it's things that I just enjoy. So I don't know. Maybe I just put too much on my plate. That's the only thing that I can think of, and I think that's how it can be sneaky.
Yeah, it's the same story for everybody, and the story goes like this. You start to feel bad, like you did. So you go to your primary care, and they run labs, and they say everything looks just fine. So, if you're fatigued and you can't get going, you have no motivation, then you must be depressed. So here's your antidepressant, and that's all the conventional system has to offer for you. And all that does is make you numb. I mean, they may work, but they make you numb over time. Especially, you just don't feel yourself.
Well, and that's what happened. Because you're so popular that I couldn't get into you until like I think February. And so I went to my cardiologist because I have mitral valve prolapse, and so I've got to get that in check, to make sure it's okay. And I have heart palpitations, and I was having those. And so I thought, well, maybe it's that, maybe there's something with my heart going on. I don't know, but I had to rule that out. So I was able to get in to see him. And of course he's like, oh, you're just burnt out. Here, have some Wellbutrin, and here's something for your heart palpitations, and have a nice day. And so I was like, okay, I still feel like crap. I mean, Wellbutrin, everything. I lay on the couch and watch TV, and then I would just get up and do the things that I had to do, and I had to work. Luckily, I worked from home, and at the time I had a great staff, so it was easier at that time. But that's all I could do. I mean, I didn't want to talk to anybody. I made my podcast be once a month, and I put on a smile for an hour, and after that, I would be done for the day. I mean, I just faked it. I
Yeah.
faked myself in front of everybody else. So nobody would know what I was suffering with underneath. And, I would just muster up the energy, get on, put on a happy face, be all happy. And just, afterwards, like, oh my God, I can't do this
Yeah,
anymore,
it's a lot of effort. It's a lot of effort to perform when you don't feel good inside.
Yeah.
But when you feel that way, um, it takes so much more energy out of you to try to be the person that you think you should be. And you can't
People
achieve
expect you to
that.
be.
Yeah. And you can't achieve that all the time. And then when you fall off that baseline, then you just feel like you hit a wall. But with your doc there, that's where everybody stops. That's all the system does. And you can't just there comes a time when you can push through it and push through it and push through it. And then all of a sudden you can't push through it. And then you get really, really, really low. And that's a hard point. It's a hard place to be.
And the thing is like when you're like, well, you're not physically apparently sick to anybody. And so they're like, what's wrong with you? And you're like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm depressed or something, but you don't know. Like, I just don't feel like
Right.
doing anything.
Right.
And they're like, well, what are you depressed about? You have nothing to be depressed about. Like, I know.
Yeah. So it's not depression, it's chronic fatigue.
Right.
I've never met an energetic depressed patient. So
right.
we bring back life and vitality and you feel good. You can still have events in your life that are depression events, but when you feel good about it, it's just a season. It's not forever.
Right.
But when I tested you, I knew exactly why you felt that way.
Well, I think you knew when you saw me, you had suspicions of what was wrong before you even tested me.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Because you have experienced it yourself, right?
I have. I've been through it. Fortunately, I've probably been through everything that my patients have gone through, from the emotional side to Lyme disease and co-infections like Bartonella, which is one of the things that you had. And Bartonella really, really affects you mentally. And it's a bacteria that really affects your neurological system. And you just can't make yourself better when you have infections that are affecting your nervous system. You can try real hard, but that's going to end up burned out.
Well, can you talk about some of these other like Lyme and Bartonella that kind of pair up with Epstein-Barr that I had at the same time, and some people have them at the same time? That just kind of walk us through what is lingering in our bodies. Where did that come from? And then how does it erupt?
Sure. So we have, when we're born, we continuously are affected by viruses. Viruses are what keep our immune system strong. We have hundreds of viruses in the human body. They are innate to us. They're put there to keep our immune system on defense and make us strong. Epstein-Barr, we typically get when we're teenagers or in college. 95% of my patients have had it. If you haven't had it, I'm kind of surprised. And for the most part, conventional physicians don't test for it properly because our normal labs like LabCorp and Quest, they only check 3 antibodies. And we know better than that. We can always see if you've ever had it because you hold antibodies to viruses forever. If you've ever had any virus, I can still see it. So when we check for Coxsackie parvovirus, HHV viruses 1 through 8, we've all had them. So they're not supposed to goof up. Our immune system is supposed to be strong enough to be on guard to keep those viruses at bay. But when you go through the stress, or you go through an illness, or you go through chronic stress, emotional stress, spiritual stress, doesn't matter, then it's really easy for EBV to come back up. Now, if EBV reactivates, so are other viruses reactivating. So it's not just one. So when I see, like, for example, when you started feeling about it in January, in April, I tested you and your EBV titer, I can see that you've had it like everybody else. It should be less than 3, it was at 6.24. and that means it's reactivated, and that's probably the primary thing. But there are deeper underlying illnesses that create Epstein-Barr to not have its reactivation, and that's why I test for Lyme disease, and I test for Lyme properly because I'm going to make sure I'll run the right labs for everybody. Lyme was fairly clear for you, I think, but
Yeah.
But on this test, you had a positive for Bartonella, and Bartonella is a bacteria that we get from ticks, fleas, mosquitoes, ticks,
Scratches.
cat scratch. It's cat scratch fever technically, and cats carry this bacteria. So many people had. I've had it myself, but it's so neurological that even Tommy Hilfiger's daughter, you know, the designer,
Yeah.
she was in Cape Cod at the beach, and she got bit by a few sand fleas, and she ended up with Lyme and Bartonella.
Oh
And
my gosh.
she went so psychologically out of it that they institutionalized her until a doctor went, "Hey, I think you have Bartonella. Here's some antibiotic. Go home." And for my patients, the ones that have the most rage and mood disorders, is Bartonella. So it's a really interesting bacteria, but if you don't test for these things properly, then you're not going to find them, and then you're just going to be falling through the cracks.
And I felt a little bit more grumpier than normal. That's not what I'm gonna really call it, grumpy, but you know,
When
not
you don't feel
myself in
good,
that
you have no
way.
tolerance.
What's that?
When you don't feel good, you have no tolerance.
Right. That's true too.
Your bucket is full, so you have no boundaries in there. So everything's just right there. Any little thing could flow the bucket over, and you're gonna have emotions.
Well, you know, the thing is that when I had mono when I was 16, they were like, "Oh, you'll never get this again." And are they talking about the acute part of it,
Right.
or
Yeah.
like the sore throat? And I mean, I got the tired part, but
Yeah.
the sore throat, which is the worst sore throat you could ever imagine in your life. And mine was so bad I had my spleen removed. Can you explain
Oh,
like why?
gosh. Yeah. So they remove your immune system so you don't react to the virus. Oh, that's a smart thing to do.
Well, it was
It was
12 inches by 6 inches and
it
weighed
was
2
it was it
pounds.
was it was enlarged. If they would have just given you antivirals, so your spleen enlarged because your body's trying to defend you, and when it enlarges, you make more white blood cell capacity to go fight the bug. So you know our system is great.
Well, at the time they thought I had they thought I had a blood disorder. Instead, they thought that I contracted mono at the hospital because I had 5 blood transfusions.
That's possible. That's possible. Yeah, if you need blood transfusions, I would think that you have some hematology issues as well. That's interesting. That's definitely not common with the mononucleosis infection. But everybody's different, you know.
Yeah, I came down with it in the hospital, the acute part. I had the sore throat in the hospital. I was laying there with a tube up my nose, down my throat after surgery, because they had to pump my stomach after surgery, because I had an incision from my belly button to my sternum to remove the spleen because it literally was like the size of a football.
Yeah, it's trying to defend you. It would have been okay if they would have just treated you properly, but
they thought they thought that it was well, they didn't know I had mono until after I had my spleen out. So they didn't think it was a virus ahead of time. They thought it was the not hemochromatosis. What it was it? I'm going blank.
polycythemia.
No, it's kind of like it's a blood disorder for North America, North European descent. I'll think of it in a minute, but it's where your cells, you probably know if I can describe it. So your cells are more like shaped like an M&M rather than like a donut, you know. Kind of like how sickle cell is, but it's not sickle cell. It's a different, same different, where your your spleen will filter out good blood cells.
Well, your spleen was just trying to do its job. I mean, it's not uncommon to get in a large spleen with mono because, you know, for teenagers, if you get mono, they don't want you to play football or contact sports because it may interrupt that. So, I mean, that's a normal process. But
so they thought that's what it was. I don't think it was. I was probably having mono the entire time. And then just came to a head after my surgery.
yeah.
But so then I just was sick a lot. I was sick a lot afterwards. I had to take an antiphylactic antibiotic for a long time. And, you know, I mean, it's just every time I turned around, I was getting sick. And until finally, I just decided I'm tired of getting sick. I don't have time for this. And I went 8 years without being sick.
Yeah.
So you can really set an intention to get well, which I thought was really profound.
Right.
And I didn't really purposely, I was just like, you know what, I don't have time for this. And I just like said to myself, I don't get sick anymore. I don't get sick anymore. I don't get sick anymore. And I didn't.
Well, the difference in you and other people is that you were set up with a mindset to heal. Okay. So a lot of patients don't have that mindset. And so when they get sick, they just assume a different identity and their illness becomes their ego, and they don't know what to do without their illness. And that's a hard place to be. We can test properly and we can remove pathogens and we can detoxify. I can use neurotransmitters. I can use things to help your brain feel better. You have natural supplements that improve dopamine and serotonin and things like that. But if you have these underlying infections, it affects blood flow and ischemia, and it creates these blood disorders. It creates autoimmune disease. It creates all these things. So it's hard to think yourself through that when you have those underlying factors. But you're different because you already have that mindset that you can heal. And a lot of patients, they don't have that. They get sick and so that's one of the things that we try to work on, or we're trying to find ways to work on them, is getting their mind right and setting up a system of healing mentally before they even come into the door. Because I want a patient that's ready to heal and ready to receive that energy. And I mean, I think one of the biggest thing for illness is making sure you stay grateful. Because if you're not grateful, then you're not giving, and the energy just gets stagnant and you can't flow. And illness just breeds in that stagnation of I'm sick. But you already had that mindset. So I knew when you came in and we sat down and talked about this stuff that it was going to be fine. I knew that because you have that mindset.
Well, I remember sitting right across from you in your office, and I said, I want to create the best version of myself. And you jumped right on board with that. You're like, you will, on my watch. And it's because we were going to co-create my healing. You know, I mean, the patient is as much a part of it as
absolutely
practitioner, and the treatment itself, and being, you know, a champion for your body.
Absolutely.
And you know, I had so many things to do. I had places to go and people to see, and I couldn't do that in the state I was. And, you know, it just taken me off my path, and I wanted back on that path as soon as I could. But I had to be patient, and I had to, you know, I mean, there were times where, I mean, I don't think I cleaned my kitchen floor until May. And that sounds gross, but
no, I mean, you just don't have the energy, you don't have the motivation that you want to do. There's a difference in mental motivation and physical motivation. You can feel like you need to do things and know what you need to do, but you kind of just don't.
Yeah. And I and then when another thing I wanted to get into was the heavy metal detox. I know you had originally told me about that when we first met, that when we going over my records that, not, well, you wanted me to get tested for it. And I was like, I don't know. Like I didn't, and it wasn't cheap to do, but finally I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. And then I also found a heavy metal detox way of eating that I started to do before we set up the testing and
Right.
and doing the treatment in your office, and that was a game changer as well. My energy already took a turn after changing the way I was eating. It was mostly just fruits and vegetables, some
Sure.
potatoes, and I really stayed away from inflammatory type foods. And I did just for a couple of weeks. I felt great. And I remember at the end, I was like, I want to clean my kitchen floor on my hands and knees, every square inch. And it's not because I felt like I had to, I wanted to. I had the energy to do it. And I was like celebrating, like, oh my gosh, I have the energy to do this, and then it was like, okay, my focus is what can I do to improve my energy? And that's all I thought about.
Well,
And
you can do that. Like you can think about and do everything you want to do, but when you have Epstein-Barr that's reactivated, it's going to be really hard thing to think through and do. Even with food, you have to eat right because your body is, you don't want to eat inflammatory foods because you just make it worse. But you get to a certain level, and it's still going to be that part you just can't get to.
yeah, and it's baby steps too. It is baby steps, because there are times where you just don't feel like doing the lifestyle changes that you need to do. Oh, I mean, my partner, I mean, he was like, you need to go outside in the sun.
Right.
You need to
Yes.
get, and I was like, I couldn't even have the energy to walk out, stick my big toe out the front door into
Yeah.
the sunlight. I just didn't want to. I didn't have the energy. So I'm like, well, it probably makes sense. Maybe I should get some vitamin D. So I looked at supplements, and that gave me a little inch more to help me get a little, it's like your energy is you're just creeping it more and more and more. And it's helping put that desire for more energy, to learn how to get more energy. So just getting finally like, okay, my next goal is just get out of the house and get some sun. And so I just finally went out and sat on the front steps in the sun, and like, okay, I did that, yay. And I'm like, maybe I should take a supplement. When I got that, and that helped. I just tried so many things. And of course, then I felt a big improvement after I started your treatment. And so I was wanting to know if, because I was grasping at straws before I could see you, of what I could do to just live and get through.
Yeah, because the medical system gave you an antidepressant instead of treating you for underlying causes, but they don't test that ever.
But another thing in that experience too was I felt drunk. I felt like you do when you've really like had a lot. And I don't drink very much, but I've had experiences like that. I mean, I'm a human being. And I just felt like my head was just swimming, and I couldn't even, I almost felt like I was going to pass out sometimes.
Right.
I don't know what that was. And then I had the tinnitus that was just, it was an orchestra in my brain. And
so when you have inflammation in your nervous system and your mitochondria aren't working properly, and you have infections, you have metals, then your nervous system vibrates to a different energy. And that vibration in your nervous system, your ears pick it up as a sound. So it's just a
Mm,
frequency in your nervous system that is not right. And then your ears pick that up as a sound, because your ears take vibrations and turn
yeah.
them into sounds. So tinnitus is a sign that your nervous system is inflamed, and that there's about 100 reasons you can get tinnitus. But for you, I mean, your case was fairly simple for me. So we just targeted these bugs. But it's especially heavy metals. They definitely vibrate your nervous system in a different way. And your lead was about 8 times over normal. My lead one time was 28 times over normal.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and I felt it. I was vibrating. I was tinnitus, and I started my cleanse, and I was like, I couldn't work for a week when I started my detox, because I just did it too fast, of course.
Yeah.
Experiment on my body.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those things cause it. Tinnitus is just a symptom. Fatigue is a symptom. Everything is a symptom of your body trying to heal. So when you feel illness or disease, what we call illness or disease, you're actually going through a healing crisis.
So can you tell me a little bit more about the heavy metals part? What, like, we found lead for me, but what are some other things that you see in your practice that people aren't aware of? They're walking around and it's affecting their health. But you know, there are things that you can do to cleanse. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I do it on such a clinical level that we test heavy metals properly. We actually do an IV chelator that binds to metals, a covalent bond that binds them completely. And then you collect urine for 12 hours. So I'm actually truly seeing an excretion of these metals. If people at home want to do a metals cleanse, you have to be careful, because the metal cleanse that you do at home are plant-based, which is great. Of course, I'm a naturopath. I love plants and herbs, but they don't create a covalent bond to heavy metals like chlorella and zeolite and all these things. That they're great, but you have to make sure you set up your detoxification pathways. Your liver needs to be open. Your phase 1, phase 2 detoxification system needs to be open. So we set a patient up properly, and then we do the test, and then whatever the test shows, then we target that. So we targeted lead with you, and it's fairly simple. It's just some things you take by mouth, or sometimes we do IV therapies as well. So heavy
I did
metals.
the IV therapy,
Yeah.
and I think I did oral therapy in conjunction with that.
So you have heavy metals, you have mold, you have bacterial infections, which are Lyme and co-infections, mycoplasmas, and then you have viruses in the EBV group. So the EBV group are all HHV viruses, and they can reactivate at any time. They live in everybody, but when they become reactivated, everything acts up. And you got this, I call it a bug bucket. You've got so many things in your system that are just going crazy. And of course, the side effect is just going to make you're going to be fatigued and you're going to feel bad.
So now, one of the things that you treated me for were my digestive system and candida.
Yeah, candida is a big issue. Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Candida is the nemesis of our existence. It is a pathogen that lives in the intestinal tract. We're born with it, but through antibiotics and sugar and lifestyle, it's very pathogenic. So our intestinal tract inside the lining has a surface area that equates to a tennis court. And we have bugs growing on that whole thing. It's our human genome. It makes us who we are. It makes our personality. It makes our character. It communicates with cells to the whole body. Your brain can't live without your gut, but your gut can live without your brain. So candida is the first thing that I start with on all patients while we're waiting on tests to come back, because candida makes the most brain fog. It makes us feel the most depersonalized. It makes us most inflamed. It makes us red. It makes us puffy, makes us stuffy. It creates autoimmune disease. Candida is a nemesis, and it's not really addressed properly in this system. Because
with a standard American diet, it's just rampant everywhere.
sad diet.
Yeah. And I saw, I think probably the biggest thing that I felt as far as an improvement was my clarity, mental clarity, because I did suffer from mental fogginess. It was bad. I thought something was wrong with me. I
Yeah,
was
so
like, am I
that's
getting
that's
dementia or what?
no,
Like, what's wrong with me?
that's candida more than it is the metals or the Bartonella. Candida in the gut, it releases chemicals that get into the bloodstream and they intercept in the neurological chemistries, and they block the dopamine, they block the serotonin, or they mimic the same thing there, and there's just no information in there. So it makes you super, super moody, very depressed, very depersonalized, like out of body. You're not present. You're not here. And for my young kids, their pupils will get really big and dilated because
Really?
candida creates an endorphin that is a morphic reaction. So it releases a morphine type of substance that
Really?
makes the brain be on a chemical that, and you can see in the pupil dilation.
And it also makes you crave more, right?
More, of course. It
It
wants sugar.
mhm.
Feed
It
me.
wants, yeah, it wants the sugar, the cakes, the cookies, the candy, and kids are probably more prone to it, you know.
Well, kids now these days, they're born with candida because of the way that we used our lifestyle, and we grew up on an antibiotic generation. I'm 51,
Mhm.
so I was just born on antibiotics. So, and Stacey was too. So when we had our kids, they were just born with candida from the beginning, and it just makes you sick, and it's never treated. Like, I am on a journey to help people feel like the way they're really supposed to feel, because I don't think most people have their full potential because they've always been sick and they don't even know what it feels like to be healthy.
Yeah.
So even someone who says, I feel pretty good, they're not there.
Mm-mm.
They're not there. They have these things that we test for that we can help. Even just for candida, it's a simple diet change and some antifungals, and it kind of just brings your brain back to life. So I'm on a journey to help people feel like they're supposed to feel, like all of their emotions and all of their spirituality, and everything that they're meant to be, because the opposite is what you went through is like, oh, you don't feel like you're supposed to feel, and you feel depressed and you have fatigue. Here's your antidepressant. And then antidepressant makes you numb. That's the opposite of what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to
Yeah.
numb you. I'm trying to open you. I'm trying to find that place in you that really, really you wake up and like, you go, oh, here I am. Wow, the world looks brighter. Things are easier. I have more tolerance.
Yeah.
I feel good now, you know?
There's more ease and flow, and you're not struggling
It's all about
so
energy
much.
flow.
It certainly is. And you know, I feel like it all still comes back to setting an intention, um and being patient with that journey, and celebrating along the way little milestones, because that's what you know, like you talked about appreciation, and that's what I mean by celebrating, you know,
Gratitude.
appreciating the like I I want to clean my kitchen floor. I mean, I was so excited that I felt like doing that. I mean, who does that, you know? But for me, when I felt like I couldn't even imagine emptying the dishwasher and filling it in the same day. Like, I was like,
Right.
how do people do that? How do people do laundry and any other chore in the same day? I
Yeah.
couldn't. I'm like, I know I've done this. I've cleaned the entire house before, but I couldn't even imagine, how do people do that? That is so, you got to have some superhuman strength to do all of that. I mean, that's where I was. And I'm like, I know I've done this, but I could not. I was so low, so low.
Yeah. So you get to see how much your brain controls your body. Your brain.
And your body, your brain.
Yeah. Yeah. You can feel emotionally drained or physically drained or both or one or the other. You can feel like you want to do stuff, but you can't because this thing's controlling it, and you can feel like super good up here, and just this thing doesn't move. A lot of people don't know the difference in those two. It just depends on how you're connected to your body and your awareness of your body.
And then you beat yourself up for it, you know,
Yeah.
because then you're thinking, oh, I'm so lazy, or oh, why am I so depressed? And, you know, I shouldn't feel this way. And then they talk about, oh, well, you can be chemically depressed. Well, that doesn't mean you have a life sentence, that
Well, like
something's going on in your
again,
body.
you ask yourself the question. You ask yourself this question: what am I depressed about? And if there's nothing specific to be depressed about, it's not depression. It's chronic fatigue.
Mhm.
And that's where we come in, because the system is not going to have much help for you there. Just like you did, your journey is a perfect example of where you could have gone, Susan, is antidepressants. You feel worse, they give you another one, you feel better because they're numbing you, and then you're stuck there, and that's where you are, and you're there for life. So
Or worse.
that's where, I mean, $1 trillion a year go to antidepressants. So we have a whole many millions of Americans walking around numb that aren't fulfilling their potential because they're just not treated correctly.
Well, another thing too is that there are other things like what, multiple sclerosis and cancers that can start to
Yeah.
come out because they haven't been addressed
Yeah.
with
The
this
things that we
virus.
talked about, candida viruses, it's 3 buckets: fungal bucket, bacteria bucket, and viral bucket. There's three buckets of bugs can cause all these autoimmune diseases, especially Lyme, because it's never tested properly in the conventional system. And it causes, according to Alan McDonald, who's a Harvard professor for 30 years, 80% of Alzheimer's have spirochetes in their brain when he dissects their brain. So these infections create all of our autoimmune diseases.
So what I wanted to kind of go through was, what are some of the treatments that you offer for kind of getting to where, like you treated me, and you've got other patients that are going along similar paths. What are some of the things that you use that maybe normal Western medicine is doing that's not working?
Sure.
What is working and what is not working?
Well, we combine therapies. So I'm not trying to petition for patients, but offices like mine find the root of illness. So when you come in the door, the first thing we're going to do is just do proper tests from proper labs to find accurate issues that we need to treat. And we target those issues, whether it's Epstein-Barr, Lyme, whether it's just neurotransmitters, whether it's just gut health, just candida. I mean, my sickest patients are typically bedbound, they're catatonic, they're in wheelchairs, they have feeding tubes. I mean, and it's from these things that we've been talking about. It's not really complicated if you do the proper test. And our treatments are very harmless now, extremely scientific, like antisense therapies. We can use RNA sequences to turn off bugs. We just like we don't have hepatitis C in America anymore because we use antisense to shut off the replication sequence. So we can do that for many different types of pathogens, and it's not harmful. It's not years and years of antibiotics and things like it used to be. We do IV therapies, vitamin C, nutritional therapies. Every patient is unique and individualized, so it's always set for that patient, and there's no easy question. So we want everything to be done as accurately as possible.
Yeah. So
like through your treatment, did you get sicker before you got better? I mean, sometimes you do, but nowadays, most of the time, you don't much.
Yeah, I don't feel like I did get sicker before I got better. It was a definitely a gradual climb up. And I mean, it took what, a year, right? I mean, my treatment was a year.
Definitely. I months to 6 months to a year, that's pretty normal, because we're not band-aiding your symptoms. We're not just giving you a drug to suppress it. We're actually treating it and bringing your immune system back online. At the same time, you're working on your emotions, and we have a few books that we like our patients to read to try to, reset their emotions, and make sure that they're in a healing capacity. Because I mean, my average patient's been sick for 10, 20, 30 years, and they've lost most of their life.
They didn't get
And
ahead of the game.
they
And
can't find help.
yeah. And that's the thing that I wanted to just have you come on, is because, those who are out there that are just feeling depressed or feeling tired, or just can't seem to make ends meet with their energy and the things that they want to do. I mean, I always felt like my arms were like two lead buckets,
Yeah,
like I just,
sure.
it was just so hard to just kind of do what I needed to do
Yeah,
around the house. And
yeah.
and even before, yeah,
Yeah.
I just felt a heaviness, a very,
Just,
yes,
it's hard to go up the stairs, and it's hard to
yes,
lift your arms, and we call
yes.
that bone tired.
Bone tired, yes. I just felt that, and it would come and go. I had good days and bad days, and good days and bad days for years before this really came to a head. I mean, I don't want people to have to go to where I was in January of last year, where I just wanted to curl up into a ball and welcome not waking up. Nobody deserves that or needs to feel that. But, that 5 years prior, where I was feeling inflammation coming up, and I was having just pain that would migrate around my body.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I was tired, brain fogginess, all
yeah,
that.
migrating pain is always Bartonella. Fogginess is always Candida. Every time a patient says these things to me, I go, Candida. Oh, Bartonella. Oh, it's easy to put it in its right place so I can treat it properly. But these things that you're saying, you need to really speak out to the world about, because it is extremely common to go through this, but people just don't know where to turn.
Is there a point of no return? Is there a point of no return? Meaning,
Not for me, there isn't.
I mean, what I mean is, you've got patients who are bedridden and on feeding tubes that, they've gone really to a horrible place. So
Yeah.
is there?
There is a point of no return in their way that they look at their illness. Okay. But physically, we can fix all those things on the inside. But, as I remove things off the plate, and then the road narrows to the journey, and they're still feeling that same way, it becomes more and more and more emotional. More, and I really don't have anywhere to put them. I mean, there's coaches like you, and there's EMDR therapy, there's trauma counseling, and there's lots of good, but neurofeedback is great for neurological recovery.
That's the EMDR.
EMDR is a psychology treatment, but it's a trauma desensitization technique, and it's scientific. And yeah, so the point of no return. Yeah, so I talk to patients that on paper, they look better and better and better and better and better, but they're still stuck in their illness. I guess that's a good point you make, because there maybe is a point of no return for them, but I still think they can flip it. So I'm just thinking about a patient from New Jersey, and she was like that. And it just gets, I'm like, I don't understand why you're not getting better. And then all of a sudden, you start seeing it more emotional. And then one day somebody goes, you think in your head, oh, I think I'm getting a little bit better. As soon as you have that thought, wow, your system just sets up this new hierarchy of innate wisdom. And then you start turning the corner. It's like, oh, just that one little pivot. Oh, did I have a better day today? Yeah. And then, oh, I can get better. I can see the light.
Have you seen where people have had profound healing almost overnight?
Yes. Yes. Especially with a lot of the females around our area, they're equestrian and they get Lyme disease through horseflies.
Oh,
And I've had many bedbound young ladies after SOT treatment. A few days later, a week later, 2 weeks later, they're back on their horses. It's easy that way. Once you find the right things to treat and get them back on their feet.
well, and it's also too, there's people that have just made a decision.
Yeah. So these guys aren't stuck in their illness.
Yeah.
They're just sick and they want to get better.
They want to get over it and get back. They want to get back in the saddle again, right?
Exactly.
And I think that's where I was. I didn't want to succumb to this. I didn't want this to be me. I didn't want it to be, I'm going to be now the sick one that everybody's got to take care of.
Yeah. That's a great point. Is to how do you help people get out of their illness and not help? How do you remove that identity from somebody when all they know is being sick and they lose their happiness and they're depressed, all the symptoms you had, and how do you set up that hierarchy? If you can give me some pointers one day, that would be great. We could work together on this.
Yeah, I think, it's definitely like with my create happy now, the create is an acronym. And the first part of it, the C, is choose to change. And if you don't choose to change, then it's all up to you. It's up to you to choose to change. And there's nothing that you can do to change somebody else's mind about it other than giving them some evidence of other success stories. I think that has, I think that's profound in saying that, others have been able to do it if they want to. If they don't want to, or they can't see themselves being better ever, then it's not going to happen. But if they know, it could happen, they can get better, it is possible, and they choose that for themselves as their path, then it can happen, and it can take in the timeline that they believe. It's all about their belief.
I'm gonna use that choose to change. I'm gonna make my patient sign a waiver. Choose to change.
Absolutely. I mean, you have to be on board with what is the end result. I mean, what's a day in the life in the future that you want to have, and write it out in detail. And that is very profound exercise. And maybe that might be something that your patients can do. Let's visualize what's going to be like once you're well. What are you going to be doing?
Right.
Where are you going to be? Who are you going to be with? What are the things you're going to be able to do? What are you going to be able to enjoy? Right. Have them write out a day in the life of that. What does it look like? Even just a normal day. It doesn't have to be, unbelievable, but it can be a believable story.
And ways that you are grateful, because you got to flow that grateful energy.
Absolutely. Yes. You've got to be grateful that you exist and that you have the opportunity for health. Right. I mean, I thanked you for everything that you've ever done for me and my family. You've created a lot of healing for my daughter and myself. And I appreciate you that I can come to you when I don't know what's wrong, and I know that I can trust that. And so if you trust in the treatment, I think that's huge, because
Absolutely.
You can take a placebo and get better, or you can go, this isn't going to work, and take it and it'll work for somebody else because they believe it's going to work. And you go, I don't believe this is going to work. And so then it won't.
You have to trust in your practitioner, and you have to have hope. Without those two things, it's just not going to work.
Exactly. Exactly. And the thing is that happiness is not um supposed to be relying upon your where you are, who you're with, what you have. It starts within you. It's not
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
um it's not an external thing.
Yeah, nobody else is supposed to make you happy.
Right. And in turn, you're not responsible for anybody else's happiness either.
That's hard. That's hard to do for some people.
It is. But it's not because you have to. You can want to do things for other because that's pleasurable for you and you like to
Yeah,
see their delight and the things that you're doing for them.
and
But
in giving, you can be happy.
yes, yes. And not giving in thinking you're going to get anything in return.
Right. Exactly. Honestly.
Right, right. And I think another thing that is huge is patience with yourself. Like there were so many things that I was like, I don't have the energy to do yet, because I felt overwhelmed all the time,
Yeah,
all the time.
your bucket was full. Everything.
And I still have a little PTSD about getting overwhelmed,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I just like I can do this,
And
and if I can't do it,
you have your
I'll
speed bumps too, you know?
yeah.
You have your speed bumps. And then you revert back to, oh my gosh, is it coming back again? You have to go, no, it's just a speed bump. We all have speed bumps.
I'm tired today. It's just because I'm tired. Maybe I overdid yesterday. It's
Right.
okay. You know what? I'll just rest today and I will do what I wanted to do. I'll just reschedule it,
Exactly.
and you're
Exactly.
just um and be grateful that you're able to take that time. And you need to delegate people to help you. Don't not ask for help. And that was my mistake early on because here I was embarrassed. I was a depressed happiness coach.
Yeah.
I was embarrassed. I was like, I can't get myself out of this. I don't know. Like what
And
did
you can't think through it and all the rules that you know how to do. You're doing them right, but it's because these underlying
it's a
viruses,
body thing, not
it's a
yeah.
physical thing, chemistries.
Right. And so, but I asked for help. I didn't have the energy to do some things. And so I had to ask for help instead of beating myself up because I couldn't. And I just had to say, this is just temporary. I don't know what's wrong, but I just need help until I can figure this out.
Right.
Um, and I think, and then try to wean yourself off that help and celebrate that,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
and
sure.
and not succumb to the uh victim role
Mentality. Yeah.
of the illness, because that's
Here's
easy
where
to do.
here I am. This is where I'm always going to be. Life isn't going to be any better. I just need to go close up and just go away. Yeah.
Hmm.
That's the fight. And that's what we're become cheerleaders for a lot of patients, just
Yeah,
trying to motivate them that way.
yeah,
Well,
but
I'm glad you feel so much better. I mean, I got to watch you go from the top to the bottom back to the top. And it's kind of sorry, but it's kind of cool to see. But that journey always makes you better for other people. So you have a different empathetic situation
well,
there.
what's really funny is that I was feeling so great in 2020. I mean, it was right in the middle of COVID, and I was having a great year, even though it was COVID. Other than just having to wear a mask everywhere and just running out of toilet paper, um, just that kind of thing, and the fear of the unknown,
Yeah.
but once, but that wasn't really, it wasn't getting me emotionally upset, per se, I guess. And but I was like,
I was feeling so great that I was like, I don't know if I can relate to people who are struggling, and careful what you wish for. So the universe decided to say, okay, let's do this. Let's let you go through a journey. And
Yeah. Whoops.
so I'm kind of glad I went through it, to be honest with you, because now I have that. I think a lot of people, this is why they don't feel happy. This is why they don't feel happy, because they don't feel good. They don't feel good. And there's so many things in this world not making you feel good, and it's hard to rise above it. We don't know how to get better, and it could be physical. It could be physical. So, but I just want to thank you so much for joining me today. And I always ask all of my guests if they can provide one of their favorite quotes. And what's your favorite happy hack?
Happy hack for me is being on the water. We live on a big lake, and as soon as we're done, I'm putting on my bathing suit and going to put my feet in the water. A quote that's one of my favorites is actually one of mine, and it's, God made the body perfect. He did not make it to fail. So in that light, the way I look at someone is that if you're going through these hard times, typically it's your body trying to heal you. You're not sick. It's a way that our Creator made us to heal. I mean, fatigue, you need to slow down. You need to listen to your body. There's something wrong. We can get through these things. So another hack is music. I play drums, guitar. My family does. We all play music. So, that's really fun. So I guess that's where I find most of my happiness, putting my feet earthing, getting grounded, because I need to ground every day before I go to the next day.
Get out into nature. It's that's where we're supposed to be, inside in a man-made constructed building. We're supposed to be out in nature. And I think that definitely was a huge factor in my I decided to get out, and I would go for a walk, even if it was just down to the end of the block, a few houses down in the back.
From my door to my car, from the car to the office, I take a little bit of time. I sit in the sun. I just breathe for a few minutes. Just find that peaceful place. Feel the energy come in, go in, and give as much as we can. There's also, I try not to give mine. I try to give that energy to everybody. So you got to find how to give from the right place too.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much. And, I'd love to have you on the show again. And, sometime. But I just thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge. Like I said, I trusted you with my life, and you gave it back. And I thank you for that.
You're going to make me blush and run away.
Well, I remember one time, one of my visits to you, I don't remember what was wrong with me at the time, but a visit to you was a Valentine's present for my boyfriend. Remember that?
Oh yeah. That's right.
And it was like the best Valentine's Day present ever, because I was suffering from, I think it was my frozen shoulder at the time or something. I was told I was going to have surgery, and you were like, nope. And I never did. And it's like, I never had it. So yeah. So thank you again. And I really appreciate it. And I hope that I don't have to make an appointment with you anymore.
I know. You're dismissed.
But I will miss you, and we'll definitely stay in touch for sure.
Absolutely.
And maybe someday we'll be neighbors if I end up moving back to your neck of the woods.
Yeah, come on back up to North Georgia. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the time and energy.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Create Happy Now podcast. Please be sure to subscribe, and if you are watching on YouTube, hit that notification bell. If you have a topic to suggest, leave a comment below. Catch the Create Happy Now podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Deezer, Podbean, Amazon Radio, and iHeartRadio. Check out other YouTube videos on the Create Happy Now YouTube channel. And if you want more, check down below for links to resources, courses, and events, or go to www.createhappynow.com.